myself. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. This is our Flipping the Script channel. And today I have with me Miss Dara Urrutia. Did I say it correctly?
Yes, you did.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And Tara, would you like to give just a brief background about yourself and then what you do, where you live, where's your work or ministry?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my name is Tara. I live in Calgary, Alberta, which is in Canada. And I do a lot of work in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And I'm also quite fortunate to have lived in several other countries before. So I've lived in Nigeria. I've also lived in the UK as well.
Mhm.
And so I'm fortunate to have traveled to a few countries and like be exposed to different cultures. So yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So could you give us a overview of what is your main work in Sierra Leone? I know
Yeah.
I know about your work, but for audiences.
Yeah, so specifically what I do is reducing the rates of maternal and infant mortality in West Africa. And so
Mhm.
we do that through a whole bunch of means, both with improving infrastructure, improving the access to healthcare, education, specifically education for girls,
Mm.
and for women. And yeah, and so that's been, our work there has been quite involving, but also and quite rewarding and successful as well. And so we have seen the rates go down
Wow.
for maternal and infant mortality.
Wow, wow. And how long have you been working with the organization? Maybe you can share a little bit about your organization and I can provide a link somewhere
Sure.
to
Yeah,
so they
yeah.
can visit.
So, Freedom Tree, we've been established since 2011. For me, and I've been working in it since, right from the start because I'm the founder. And I had the privilege of being able to go into it full time about 3 years ago, right before the pandemic. So that was interesting. And so it was a leap of faith on my part, because I went in um, and did that, and now I get to work in it full time. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go into maybe just three main questions to help our audiences break some of the stereotypes or negative narratives that you know, that people have towards
Mhm.
people from Sierra Leone. So, in your experiences, when you talk about Sierra Leone, have you had those misconceptions from other people? And can you give us some of those examples?
I think generally when you talk about any developing country, I think you have a lot of misconceptions, concerning that. And what what generally happens is, people say things like, oh, is it really dangerous? They talk about like malaria, or they talk about some of the things that are negative in the country. Um, they talk about, yeah. And so that, I think that's pretty typical when you're talking to North American about any developing country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what is the reality?
The reality is every country has its pluses and minuses. Every country has its good and the bad,
Mm,
every country. So, America could be the land of the free, but it also is the land of the caged and lack of freedom of speech, or, that sort of thing. And so there's a dichotomy that exists in America. Canada is, yes, it's a very cold country, but it's cold country 6 months of the year. And the remaining, the other 6 months of the year, especially the 4 months of summer, it's very hot. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
it's funny because every place has a stereotype of what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just, we just recently traveled to Colombia. Colombia is a country that I love. And, whenever people say, oh, you went to Colombia, they're like, oh, how's the situation? Like there's a lot of drugs and stuff. It just has a reputation for like a country that,
True.
I don't know, there's like, I don't people imagine that people are like, hoarding drugs and hauling cocaine across the
Yeah.
street or something, and there's gunshots everywhere. Because unfortunately, whatever is portrayed in the movies and in media
Yes,
is what you
yes.
think that it is. And so the
Right.
same thing with Sierra Leone. So yes, it is one of the poorest countries in the world.
Mm,
In terms of a huge percentage of the population make less than $1 a day. But it's
mm,
also a very joyful place to be. Yes, there is
Nice.
no running water or electricity in a lot of places, like if you live in a village, but it is also a very happy place to be, and people are
Mm,
joyful, interacting with people is really fun.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and yes, people are poor, but if you have food to eat, the food is actually pretty good,
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
nice.
it's so there's a dichotomy that exists, in that
Mm-hmm.
way. Yeah. Like one of my best and fondest memories in Sierra Leone that happens quite often is sitting down in the heat of the afternoon sun, just eating mangoes that I know I've gotten for either free because they're just growing in the tree in the backyard of the guest house that I'm staying, or somebody just gifted it to me because it was growing in their backyard. Or you just bought them for super cheap, at the market, and you're sitting there eating mangoes and the juices are just running down your arms. And
Yes.
it's so good. And
As
it's
you
like,
unwrap the, right? As you peel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing like a mango in Sierra Leone, like nothing like a mango in Sierra Leone. And it's just so, because it doesn't taste like the mangoes in North America, because
Mm.
they're not imported, and they're organic, they're GMO free, like the whole nine
In
yards,
the real sense,
It's the
right?
real thing, every sense of the word.
Non-GMO and organic in the real sense
Yeah,
of the word.
yeah, exactly.
When you're talking about dichotomy, I was reminded of this, Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie Chimamanda, and she was talking about the danger of single story. Well, if we make that single story the definitive story, it's not necessarily that that single story is untrue, but that
Mhm,
it is incomplete. It
mhm. It's
doesn't represent the
the full
nation, the
story. Yeah.
people, yeah, the culture.
Yeah, that's such a good speech that she did on that, on the TED Talk. It's really well presented. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It could also happen to anyone,
Hmm.
like to anybody. Like I could totally fall into
Absolutely.
that danger of
Absolutely.
single story
Yeah.
anytime. So, what do people in Sierra Leone like to talk about on a daily basis? What are
This,
their conversation topics?
the same thing that people in North America like to talk about on a daily basis.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Um, I think people are people anywhere, and the thing is, when you're interacting with people, you kind of have to remove the outer shell and the stereotypes of what you imagine, that they are, and allow that person to be who they are to you.
Mm, mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
think in one of my interviews with uh, in this channel, his name is Caleb. He's Filipino and
Mm-hmm.
been an international student in the U.S. And I asked the same question, and it's almost your answer is similar to his. He said,
Mm-hmm.
"You be interested in the person." Like when you ask for
Exactly.
questions, be interested in the person, and that will
Yeah.
just you can never go wrong with that. Instead of
Yeah.
like, oh, I heard you guys are, I heard
Yeah.
you guys, then you start framing,
Yeah.
everybody else as this is what I think you are. But he said, be interested in the person instead
Mm-hmm.
of
The problem is that people are interested in the person, but they attach stereotypes to the person. And so they,
mm,
they just think that, we put people in boxes, and that's not
right.
really a healthy way of living or doing things.
Yeah.
And so, people are people everywhere. Like a mom in Sierra Leone might want to talk about her baby, or maybe she doesn't. Maybe because she's a working mom, like she doesn't want to talk about her children, and she wants to talk about her husband instead, or she
Yeah.
wants to talk about the latest item of clothing that she just bought. Just like you would
Yeah.
talk to your friend, or like, oh my gosh, I got this great shirt, I bought it here.
Yeah. I
Like
like your
people are
skirt.
people. Yeah, people are people. The one thing that
Hmm.
you will find is people are not as obsessive about the weather. We talk about the
Yeah.
weather a lot in America. Oh my gosh, it's so sunny. Oh my gosh, it's so rainy. And people don't do that there, because the weather is pretty consistent on a daily basis.
Okay,
Um,
so avoid talking about the weather if you
well, no,
visit the
no, you can.
country
I mean,
or
if it's extreme, so if it's been raining for 5 days straight and there's floods everywhere, then yeah, and you're like, oh my goodness, did you see the floods? But
yeah. Oh, right,
yeah,
right.
so people are people. There's nothing. You kind of have to, like, when you're interacting with people, stop thinking.
Mm,
Stop thinking about, oh my gosh, how do I talk to this person? They're just a
right.
human being, just like you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. We
Yeah.
both, we love to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
Absolutely.
so maybe one very basic tip for those for our audience and even for me who's never been in the country and then I meet someone from there. What are your top two advices, or conversation starters when I meet someone from Sierra Leone?
If you're meeting them in North America,
Yes, maybe. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't give you an advice on a conversation starter. I would just say talk to them like they're a human being. So it depends on the
Mm,
context, you know.
right.
If I'm meeting somebody because I happen to be scuba diving in Hawaii and the person scuba diving next to me is from Sierra Leone, after we get in the boat afterwards, I can be like,
Yeah.
oh, I've been to Sierra Leone too, you
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah.
I would say that to somebody who was also from America, So
Right.
yeah, I wouldn't give a specific um, piece of advice for a conversation starter because I think that there's so many things. It depends on the moment. It depends on what you're doing,
The
um,
context,
the
the
context. You
setting.
even want to have a conversation on that day.
Right.
Yeah. So am I in the grocery store and I just don't want to talk to anybody right now because I need to run out and attend to my toddler who's screaming
Right.
hysterically. Yeah.
Right.
So there's so many different contexts
Right.
in
Right.
that. Yeah.
Well, awesome. But those are the three main questions I have for you. And if there's anything that you would like to share about Freedom Tree,
Mhm.
ways that they can look or support um, your program as the
Mhm.
founder of this amazing organization, please tell us more about it.
Okay. Yeah, like I mean, to find out more about our organization, you can check out our website.
Mhm.
And for current information, check out our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and TikTok. Recently signed up on TikTok
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that. And
A lot of younger generation are into TikTok.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought so too, but there's actually so many people of different ages on TikTok. It will
Mm,
break all those stereotypes. Speaking
right.
of which, a stereotype, is that it's for like young
Yes,
people. And it's just like, no, no, there's people of all ages on TikTok.
that's true.
And so, follow us and feel free to donate. We're always looking for monthly donors and partners to
Mm-hmm.
support our mission, and what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing in Sierra Leone. And then feel free to reach out and
Okay.
start a conversation. And it can be on anything.
Awesome. Yeah, it could be anything. Focus
um,
on the person
focus on the person,
and
focus on
don't
the person.
classify and put people in a box. Yes.
Exactly. For example, you are from the Philippines, originally, but you live in America. And so if I was just like, well, I was going to start a conversation with you, if I was just like, oh, well, she's from the Philippines, and so I need to start a conversation with her based on the Philippines, it's a little
Doesn't
bit
make sense.
artificial because then
Right.
I'm not getting to know who you are.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not really that connected to the Philippines. Maybe you
Yeah.
came here when you were really young, like maybe you don't remember what things are like, maybe you don't behave like a stereotypical Filipino. There's so many things,
Right.
around that is unique and that is different. And so, yeah, I'm very big on not putting people in boxes. So,
That's a very good advice in
yeah,
general. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Tara.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, Ria.